Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Automation Nation inside Barnum. I'm Cody, and today we have Mike with us, and we're going to be talking about ISO certification standards. Barnum goes and does this every year, and they're really not required to, but we wanted to have Mike on and talk about really why do we go through this process and how does it add some value to Barnum? Kind of what is our process? What do we do? Things like that. So, Mike, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Um, Give me a quick little introduction to what you do at Barnum, period. Doesn't have to be, your role in ISO, but like just what have you done at Barnum? How long you been here? What do you do?
Okay.
You know?
I've been here for a little over 5 years now. I started off doing returns, did that for a few years, and I've been in inventory for about 3 years now. So
Speaking of returns, maybe that's something we should actually discuss on podcast one of these days too.
Yeah,
I don't think we've really talked too much about that. It's a little hidden department
it
people might
is.
want to learn about one day.
Yeah. Yeah, so my main day-to-day is inventory and then obviously the ISO on top of that.
So the ISO, how much, I guess, time does that consume of your normal job on a regular basis, or is it really just when you're doing it and that's it?
It depends on what time of the year. I mean, closer to the audit is obviously a lot more intensive, and we have the whole team out talking to all the
Mm-hmm.
different groups, auditing everyone, going over everything. So it's mainly really intensive leading up to when our external auditor comes in. But for most of the year, there's not a ton going on unless we're changing stuff that we're doing, which does not happen very often.
Sure. So I guess overall, what is at the end of the day really ISO, and what is it meant for Barnum? Like, just before we get into what
Like,
you do
what
and
what
everything
is
else, like, yeah, what is it for people who might be watching who don't even really understand what the heck it is?
in a nutshell, it's doing the same thing the same way every time. And for us, it's about consistency and higher quality of the services and products that we're selling to the customer.
So is that something that is like monitored nationwide? There's organizations that like kind of, I don't know, kind of theme that style process, or is it something just fully internal and like you can submit, we follow these procedures and you get a certification? Like,
It is very internal. I mean, a lot of different companies will do ISO, but they're very specific to what they're doing. And I
mhm.
mean, our stuff, when we go around and actually do our audits of the different groups, we're looking at their process and what their day to day is, and just kind of comparing what they say they do against what they actually do.
Okay. So,
It's mainly the exercise of our internal audit is just double checking to verify that what our people have listed as what they're doing is what they're actually doing.
okay. And so then your role of kind of being the director of that, managing it, really, what does that entail for you personally?
Personally,
Yeah.
mainly overseeing the team. I mean, they're the ones that are doing a lot of the finding. And when they bring those findings in the meetings or individually
Mhm.
as they're going through the audit, we'll talk about it. I mean, we may even go back to that group and kind of talk to them and figure out how to best address it. Because I mean, sometimes there are inconsistencies in how we have things documented,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of the changes that we make are just small things where we had it written down slightly different than how we're doing it. Maybe we found a better way to do it and just never updated the documentation until we came back to speak with those people.
Sure. How big is the team when you guys actually do this? Like how
There
many
have
people?
been 8 auditors.
8 auditors.
Yeah.
They're all people that work for Barnum full time.
Oh,
They're
yes.
employees here. They're not third party people that come sneak in and start watching over your shoulder to make sure
Nope.
you're doing your job the
Nope. The
same way every day.
only third party person we have is our external auditor that comes in once a year. But
And that third party person comes in, that auditor comes in order to actually certify us. Like
yep,
there's only so much we can do internally, and then someone else has to come in and give us thumbs up.
someone's always verifying somebody else. We're verifying
Yeah.
the people here and their processes, and the external guy is
Yeah.
verifying us and our double checking of that.
Okay. Lots of checks and balances with it, I guess.
Pretty much.
What how did you get roped into it?
I happened to be new at a time that we were bringing some newer people in, because I mean, we do the same thing now.
Mhm.
Once someone's been through almost all of the different groups that we audit, we talk to them about kind of switching out and training someone else in their
Sure.
place. And, it doesn't do us that much of a service to have the same person do the same process 2-3 times.
I guess
It
you know the
doesn't-
process, but you don't.
Maybe you know it too well at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
And you're maybe not going to find those kind of gaps where we get someone new that's, fresh eyes on it, I guess.
sure.
So we will try to cycle auditors out after a few different ones and let them train newer people so we get different eyes. I think it also helps as far as giving visibility to the auditors of what different groups do. Because the warehouse maybe isn't all that familiar with what outside sales does. But if we
Sure.
pick the auditor from the warehouse to do outside sales, it gives them more visibility and maybe better understanding across the company of what people are doing.
Yeah, and then they guess they can't fudge the system either because they know, well, maybe they are going to do it and they're just not during this process right now. They're looking for specific things because they don't know the process,
Right.
which is, outside looking in could be helpful. Now, do you guys like create a standard for that process? Like there's literally a checklist of these are the things you're looking for during our auditing process and you want to watch for them, or is it really just like whoever you guys get part of this, you train them up, whatever the training is, and they're just kind of watching and taking notes?
There is something along the lines of a checklist. I mean, customer service, for example, it just kind of outlines their basics, quotes, orders, returns, different different things that they're doing on a daily basis that no matter who you talk to in the group, they should tell you the same thing because they're all doing it.
Yeah, everyone kind of has their own, I guess, way of doing their job, but the process should be the same.
The main points throughout,
Yeah.
that's really what we're looking for. And there are sheets that accompany every one of the processes that should outline what they're doing.
Now, to get that kind of rolling for the first time, when was the first time we kind of did that internally? Have we been doing it for a long time?
We have. The first time I was involved was in 2021. Was the first audit that I did.
Did we do it before you even came on too?
We have been doing it for a while. I'm
Okay.
not too familiar on the specifics
Yeah.
before I was involved, but yeah, I've been participating since 2021.
So,
doing
like,
audits.
to kind of initialize that, does a third party come in and give us kind of a metric and be like, these are the things that we're looking for your processes, or are we expected to build the processes ourselves?
We work with the external auditor to decide which processes to audit. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is up to us which ones we do want to touch on and which ones we don't. And we stick to the ones that focus or that touch more on customer satisfaction.
Okay. So
the accounting groups aren't necessarily involved as much because that's kind of after the fact and not necessarily customer experience. It's a little bit of a different thing. So we don't audit those guys.
Now, the whole ISO process in general, that's not required for our company. That's what I've been told. Why do you have any idea why a company would require something like that, or what falls under like if it's not a required thing, why, like, obviously we're doing it to kind of flaunt that we're making sure our processes are better, but like what type of companies and things that actually like require this type of thing?
I think the requirement is mainly in manufacturing.
Okay.
I think that's because there are some sections that we don't have to adhere to because we don't manufacture anything here. So
Okay.
we're absolved from auditing certain things that we don't like. There's a design section that we don't design anything, so we don't have that. And
I guess it makes sense if manufacturing is following a certain process standard. So many of our customers, majority of our customers,
we
are
work
in
so closely,
manufacturing, things like that, and they probably see that we're going through the same process and see that in a good light, so they know. We know what they're going through, making sure their processes are right. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah, we're going through 90% of the same stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
So I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's just showing that Barnum's putting a little extra effort into it because, like we said, we don't need to do it.
Right. We don't need to, but we do it for, like I was saying, to fine tune our processes and make sure that everything's as efficient as it can be.
Now, going through that process, do you guys ever have something that you find during the process that really needs a change and it sparks
There
a
are some
process
things.
change, or you guys all sit down, go to management and be like, hey, maybe this is not efficient the way we're doing this, and something has to change.
There have been a few things like that. I mean, not major changes, but yeah, there are some changes where we kind of looked at some of the processes and went, okay, if we tweaked a couple of these steps, you still get to the same end result, but it seems like a cleaner and more efficient process. And just kind of put it back on the group and ask them if that's something that they would be, willing to do, if it seems like a positive change to them, and just working with the groups if we flag anything like that. More often than not, it's something that they maybe have done like that on their own and then didn't communicate with us. So we go back to do the audit and kind of flag a couple of things. Hey, your steps are out of order. Hey, this is a little different than what we saw. And they say we changed it, and we just update everything. So
Sure. Now, when you do that too, that goes the whole tier of people, right? We're going from the most senior people, group leaders, all the way down to newbies. Everyone's process is getting looked at, making sure everyone's following the same thing.
And
it's not just we look at the veterans who might be trying to sneak their way through doing something faster, right? Or just the
we
new
like
people
talking
who
to the
don't
new
know
people.
the process.
Ideally, we like talking to more than one person in the group. Somebody newer and maybe not a group leader, but maybe someone more experienced. So you get the two different sides of it and kind of compare, especially with newer auditors, compare how newer people in the group are doing it compared to the more senior group members.
Sure. When we like finish all this up and Barnum gets ISO certified, is that something that's like, I don't know, is that like put in email handles, or is that something that
we
people
can
actually flaunt? Like it's actually
we can, yeah.
really,
we have customers that do it. I have it in mind, and I believe we have it on the website too.
Isn't there a
flag? I think I was gonna say we have a flag. It's on the website. It's in my signature. I feel like we probably could put it in everybody's at some point too if we wanted to.
So it actually is something industry wide that is worthwhile talking about. It's not just like this little thing that inside passing.
It is.
ISO certified. It's something people understand and know that it's actually worthwhile.
It is, and when we get supplier surveys from customers too, there are differences in filling it out based on whether you are or are not certified. Us being certified, we don't answer as many questions because we have an external auditor that comes in and checks all that stuff out. We answer less questions, send a copy of our certification form with it, and it takes care of a lot of questions that would be had otherwise.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. Streamlines it for us a little bit.
It's crazy how much it reduces those surveys.
I guess when we do the audits, you said you kind of are always grabbing people from other departments to work and things. Does that really also help kind of get departments that don't work with each other often, just kind of intermingling a little more, just kind of, I mean, like we talked about this on the podcast before many times about how, there's things in our lab that half the company doesn't know they do, or outside sales has no idea half the stuff that our warehouse does, things like that. But like when the auditors come in, internal auditors are going into each other's departments, does that really kind of shed some light on each other's groups?
I think so.
They go back, kind of can talk about it, and I assume there's like some type of meetings and things after ISO's done too.
We have
share their findings.
We have a closing meeting after everyone has finished their audits, and if they had any individual stuff that we kind of worked out, more so as a group discussion.
Yeah.
So if everybody can kind of learn different things, and if you have shipping next time and something came up in this closing meeting, you're already kind of aware of what happened last time.
Sure.
So there's maybe not as much looking through notes. So we do try to share everything across the different processes with all the auditors.
Now, internally, too, with the auditors, is like, do you guys send out an email blast, try to find some volunteers who want to get into it? Or do you literally go up to someone and be like, hey, you're going to be our auditor this year?
I love volunteers. Volunteers are the best.
But is there usually, do you go and just randomly grab someone and see if they want to help out?
I mean, we have randomly solicited people and asked them if they were willing to do it. But I mean, if somebody's not into it, or they just don't have the time, then we can always keep somebody on maybe an extra audit or two beyond what they were wanting to do initially.
So it's not like
we're pretty
a
flexible.
short straw roulette wheel. Guess what? You're going to be the auditor this year.
It may have been at one point, but we're trying to stay away from that.
Okay.
I think it benefits the auditors more if they're
If they're a little,
volunteers
if
too.
they're
Yeah,
into it and
then
wanna,
they're obviously more invested in it too.
yeah.
And last time we
It's not
had
like
some.
jury duty or something where you're getting selected and just get you're stuck here.
No.
You gotta figure it out.
Last time we actually had someone that wanted to stop doing it because they thought that they were kind of hitting a wall where they weren't going to learn that much anymore,
Hmm.
and they would rather someone newer do it and get more exposure.
That's kind of a neat way to look at it. Yeah.
That was a first. I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Hmm. You said you guys usually do this like twice a year,
Once, twice.
once or twice a year.
It
Like,
was every 10 months, and I think the external auditor comes in yearly now.
is there a certain time frame of the year when it happens, or is it just kind of like
It's been in the spring.
it's always the spring?
Yeah, so we had just finished our
Oh,
one
yeah,
for
so
this year.
we just did it recently. Yeah,
Yep.
like what, a month ago, a couple weeks
About
ago.
a month ago, yeah.
How long does that process usually take from start to finish?
With
In
the
general.
external auditor?
Yeah, the whole thing, like saying this is ISO season. Like,
Are you saying when we start with our internal all the way when we're done with the
yeah, by
external?
the time you don't have to worry about it really anymore for the rest of the year. Like, how long is that process?
Maybe about a month. I like to give the external auditors 3 weeks or so to do it because I mean they have day-to-day stuff going on too.
Mhm.
So we don't want to overload them and make them push day-to-day stuff off to do this or
So does the external person kind of come in and out during the process,
he comes in
or
for
only
3
right
days
at
at
the
the
beginning and right at the
end.
end? And
Just at the
just
end.
at the end.
Yep.
Okay.
Just at the end after we've already wrapped everything up with the internal auditors, everything straightened out, paperwork corrected on our end, then he comes in for 3 days and checks it out.
And is that mainly just like maybe you and another person or so really working on that final?
For the most
group,
part,
but then,
yeah.
like,
It's-
the whole group's not sitting in a round table and you guys are going back and forth with the.
He has called
external.
some of the internal auditors in before just to kind of talk to them and meet them, but no, nothing too much so as far as asking a whole ton of questions or having the whole team in there. It's usually only 2 or 3 of us in there with them.
Proves you guys are doing it internally pretty well. You got the process.
Yeah, and
down
he's
and-
been here a few times too, so he's pretty familiar with the groups,
Mhm.
and it doesn't take him a ton of time when he goes out and talks to people.
I guess with it overall, like, do you know, like, ISO standards in general? Like, is there anything that over blankets, like, this is the big thing that everyone looks for with an ISO standard, or is it really company to company? It's your own process. Like,
I think it's company to company. The underlying theme is consistency, but it's mainly just processes,
Yeah.
company to company. And I mean that we can change as much, like if we're making a change to
Mhm.
how we're doing something for whatever reason that may be, we're free to change those process sheets as need be, just so it matches. Like that's the most important part.
now, for anybody listening who their company doesn't do this, or even if, let's say, a salesman's listening to this and one of their customers is like, well, we were thinking about getting certified or whatnot, is there anything like that tip wise that you could say that like it is actually a lot easier than people think to do? It's not as tedious or terrifying to get this done, or is it, it takes a bit of effort.
It was a
and,
little
yeah.
overwhelming at first to try to get a handle on what everything was. There's just
Mhm.
a lot of documentation that goes with it. But I mean, like anything else, once you're comfortable with the material, it's really not that bad.
So it's not just like, you see it come up on your calendar, like, oh gosh, it's ISO time again, and everyone's just like, this is going to be miserable. Like, it's really not that.
I think at one point it kind of was that, but
I could definitely see it
especially
because
with people here, when we tell them, the auditors are coming around, I
Yeah,
think
they're
there
gonna
used to be a
want you to
sense
do
of
your job.
panic
Yeah.
going on. And now not so much so. They know we're not really here to penalize anyone. It's more so just, getting the I's dotted and T's crossed.
Yeah, and I guess at the end of the day, everyone thinks audit means, and we're so used to, like, if you're getting audits, the IRS coming to check your money.
Right, it's
When
a
you're getting
negative thing.
audited here at your job, nobody's judging, your boss isn't sitting over your shoulder judging your work ethic and workload.
Yeah, we're not.
It's really just to make sure we're all on the same page, working as a team, working as a group, things like that. And
Yeah, ISO team is not on a fault finding mission here. Not in the slightest bit.
Do you think other companies that they don't do it and they're in the same type of realm as us, they probably should? Like, it's probably a good thing.
I think people could benefit
It's-
from
it's
doing it.
Definitely a nice little
If
feather in the cap.
Yeah. If nothing else, to broadcast to others that
Mhm.
quality is a main objective for us. and as we were talking about, to expose people in different groups to what other groups that they don't normally work with may be doing.
Yeah, like I mean, honestly, when I first heard of us doing this, my thought was there was a team, an external team that we partnered with that comes in, hovers over your shoulders, and is like lurking around, and we don't know who this person is, and they're watching us do our jobs, and we're like, what the heck is this? But you know, now that I've seen the process a couple of years and talked to you about it, like that it's just your peers, just kind of,
Yeah.
we all want to know how each other work and document it, so we're consistent. And at the end of the day, it's consistent. That's what you want to see. It definitely is not as
it's not scary.
Yeah, it's not scary.
Yeah, it used to be kind of a panic-inducing, scary kind of thing. Auditors are coming around, and
because it's just the word audit. It just makes you feel.
Yeah,
it's
not
crap.
exactly.
Someone's gonna be over my shoulder.
Not exactly a word that gives you the warm and fuzzies for sure.
Is there anything that like you've been doing with it that's just challenging? They just like, it does grind the gears a little bit, or anything on it that is just. And does it really take away from your other job where you really feel you're really behind after that ISO month, or is there a pretty good balance?
Sometimes it all depends on how much comes up during everyone's individual audit. Sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed. We're answering a lot of questions, but it is what it is. We have to answer those questions to get the audit done.
But overall,
overall, it's not
there's
overwhelming
not
on a large scale. No. It's not like I get a week behind every time we do an audit.
Sure.
No.
Is there anything, I guess when you guys do it, have you ever run into anything that was just completely like, wow, I didn't understand that this process even was a thing, or something just surprising? You find out this group and this group in our same, team work completely different, and we need to get them on the same page, or things like that are really just like, oh wow, or found out that everyone melds so well together already that it was just overall surprising how little process you had to change.
It was pretty surprising. I mean, we didn't really have to change much. I mean, there's some odd stuff you might know from the warehouse to warehouse with the different types of items that are kept in each. It makes it a little different.
Yep.
So there was a little bit of that oddity that we had to work through with, handling large, bulky items slightly differently and how the process goes for that. But no, not anything that was crazy different or.
That's nice. It's just nice to know in general that even though we're checking into the process, we're auditing things, Barnum as a whole seems to be efficient and consistent.
Right. There aren't a lot of corrections that come from those. We're just kind of verifying that everything is good.
They've already, we've already built our reputation over time, and we're just double checking it.
And I think a lot of it is those senior members that are in place too in every group that are ensuring that all the steps are getting followed. Everything's, we're training new people properly, teaching them to work through the issues.
Yep. Well, it's kind of a neat thing to look into, because like I know our applications group really doesn't get into the ISO stuff because our group is so there is no.
You didn't ask Carl? He didn't help.
I mean, he did. But I mean, like in general, I don't think our group really gets audited because our group has no set process. Period. Because at the end of the day, we're a put fires out group,
right?
So I mean, you can't.
Yeah, really, no, I don't think you guys were really ever on.
Process, and so we haven't been exposed to too much. So it's nice to actually kind of sit down, and chat with you, and just actually figure out how the whole thing works. Because see customer service, and obviously the warehouse, other people volunteering to do it. I see emails come across, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck they're doing this, a couple weeks, but
yeah, had to mention Carl. Him and I started at the same time.
Is there anything you guys do during that ISO couple weeks, that month, that is like, I guess you could do some type of fun event, or you're gonna reward people for participating in this because it can be kind of a grind?
We do try to reward them, and during the meetings with the whole team, we'll try to do lunch and stuff, and give it a a incentive for them to do it. Especially the closing meeting, kind of as a thank you for all the hard work that they've done during the audit, spending that month on it. I'd like to thank them a little bit with some lunch.
But we're not dangling anything special over an auditor saying, if you guys want to volunteer to audit, we're all going to take a trip to Cedar Point.
When I run out of volunteers, maybe. We haven't gotten that far yet.
But otherwise,
I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, when I run out of volunteers,
maybe we'll have to hammer on our marketing department to see if they want to do something special for the auditors next time. Well, overall, I'm glad you came on to chat with me, Mike. That the stuff is definitely interesting. Like I didn't know
It's a learning
what the heck it
experience all the way
was in
around.
general. Like, I mean, just kind of prepping for this, I had to actually look into what the heck the ISO standardization really was because it's just buzzwords to me
Right.
thrown around. But
Yeah, outside of the team, I don't think there's too much, especially from you, there's not too much involvement with apps, but yeah.
now, once we're actually one quick thing touch. I was just looking at my notes. When we are certified, do you have to go through a full like start from scratch process again, or once you're certified, the recertification
Mm.
is completely different? Like it's less.
It's not, recertification for us now is really not any different than just a normal audit.
Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's not like renewing a certification would be a whole lot smaller process. No, we just do the same thing every year, basically.
essentially, yeah.
Okay.
There's not very much deviation, whether it's a surveillance audit or a recertification one.
Okay.
And last year's was the recertification one, so I believe we are certified through 27.
Okay.
Yep. So he comes in every year and just does a surveillance, they call it, just to verify, but it's essentially the same process as for us when we talk to him and do the internal.
Sure. So if you did end up doing like two per year, that second one is not a overarching
We could do more
big
too
one
if we
you
wanted to do
wanted to.
a second one on top of the one that we were required to do.
Yeah.
If we want to kind of keep the team up to date,
Yeah.
or they feel like maybe they're
Or you
missing
guys
out by not
feel
doing it as
you wanted
much.
to change the whole process anyway. Like if management said, "Hey,
Yep.
we're changing something in our system.
Yep.
We probably should make sure everyone's on board."
We
And do
could have
another
kind of an off
ISO."
cycle one to make sure we have plenty of time to update all the info.
Yeah.
And with newer people, I think we're swapping out some of the auditors because we've had some on there for a few cycles now
Mhm.
where they've been through most of the different processes. I think we'll maybe do an off cycle one for the newer people too. So the more experienced people that are kind of phasing out have more time to train them.
Sure.
And we're
Probably
not jamming it into 3
probably same
weeks.
thing in your boat too. You're probably only going to do that for a little while, and maybe someone else will step up and start kind of directing it too.
We'll see.
Maybe if anyone's super interested in being the ISO auditor or the ISO director, I should say, or manager, you know, maybe there's some perks involved with that. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe the next time, like I said, we're gonna dangle the carrot again, and maybe there will be some perks for someone
I
to
should have asked
step
you
up.
before taking it.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit. If anybody didn't know what this was before, they probably do now.
I hope that I was helpful in learning
Yeah.
a lot.
For me, I don't know if anyone else listening to this or whatnot. I hope you got something out of it.
If you learned a lot, I hope.
I did. I learned a lot about this. This was something I did not know much about, so I'm thankful.
Awesome.
So thanks for joining me, Mike. And I guess we'll see you around the office and doing some more auditing and work hard on that inventory stuff. Maybe we should do an inventory one of these days too, because that's its own department on its own.
Get Nolan in here too.
Yeah. Talk to you guys on how that whole process works.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been great.
We'll finish this up, and that is another episode of Automation Nation. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching and listening. And I think we got another good one coming up next week. So see you then.